Namaste, my beloved friends. When one individual meets another, a new world begins. There is conversation, curiosity, attraction, exchange, and the possibility of relationship, partnership, and creation. This is Gemini, Mithun Rashi. Gemini is represented by twins because its essential principle is duality and multiplication. One thought produces another. One question opens many possibilities. One meeting can change two lives. Gemini natives naturally connect ideas, people, and experiences, which gives them a quick, flexible, and associative intelligence. To understand Gemini more deeply, we must understand the Sanskrit word Mithun. Mithun means a pair, a couple, or two beings standing together. From the same linguistic root comes Maithun, referring to sexual union, the union of that pair. In Western astrology, Gemini is usually shown as twins. Traditional Vedic astrology offers a more revealing image, a man and a woman facing each other. The man carries a mace, symbolizing physical strength and masculine energy. The woman carries a veena, symbolizing art, refinement, and feminine energy. Two different forces meet. This is not yet a marriage or complete partnership. It is the first interaction, the curiosity that arises when one person notices another and wants to know more. Gemini naturally corresponds with the third house of the Kala Purush. The first house of the Kama Trikona is the third house. The third, seventh, and 11th houses describe the movement of desire. The third begins communication and interest. The seventh brings partnership and physical union. And the 11th brings fulfillment or the outcome of the connection. Two people notice each other, begin speaking, exchange messages, discover common interests. Perhaps they meet over a cup of coffee. That simple meeting may become friendship, romance, or marriage. That is why the line, "A lot can happen over a cup of coffee," expresses the Gemini principle so beautifully. The coffee is only the setting. The real event is the conversation through which two separate worlds begin moving toward each other. However, Maithun should not be interpreted only as sexuality. At a deeper level, it represents the human desire to overcome separation through union. That union may be physical, intellectual, emotional, creative, professional, or spiritual. Two artists collaborate. Two business partners create an enterprise. A teacher and student connect through knowledge. A devotee seeks union with the divine. The form changes, but the impulse remains the same. One wishes to meet another. This brings us to Mercury, the ruler of Gemini. Mercury is the messenger. It speaks, writes, calculates, translates, negotiates, markets, trades, and explains. It carries information from one place to another and connects one mind with another. Gemini intelligence is therefore fast and adaptable. A native may hear one sentence and immediately connect it with something learned years earlier. They observe words, expressions, gestures, and tone. They notice not only what is said, but how it is said. This ability can make Gemini excellent in writing, journalism, teaching, media, sales, publishing, marketing, public relations, technology, podcasting, translation, counseling, and business development. These fields require information to be understood and communicated effectively. Gemini knows that knowledge locked inside one mind cannot influence the world. It must travel. A skilled Gemini native can explain the same subject in different ways through an example, humor, or simpler language. Their curiosity also keeps the mind youthful. They remain interested in new ideas, new technologies, people, and changing trends. Yet, flexibility can be misunderstood as inconsistency. Gemini may revise an opinion after receiving new information, and this is not always hypocrisy. An intelligent mind should be willing to learn. But flexibility must not become the absence of principles. Adaptability must not become unreliability. And communication must not become manipulation. This is one of Gemini's greatest karmic lessons. The immature Gemini may use words to impress, escape responsibility, or create confusion. The evolved Gemini uses words to educate, clarify, encourage, and heal. Speech is powerful. A sentence can begin a friendship. A careless remark can destroy trust. A sincere apology can repair a relationship. A rumor can damage a reputation. Because Gemini represents multiplication. Every native must ask, what am I multiplying through my words? Knowledge or confusion? Encouragement or anxiety? Understanding or suspicion? Gemini is both a receiver and transmitter of information. Maturity begins when speech becomes conscious, when one knows not only how to speak but what deserves to be said. Now, let us come to relationships. Gemini usually requires mental connection. Physical attraction may begin the relationship, but conversation often sustains it. Gemini appreciates humor, openness, intelligence, and a partner who introduces fresh perspectives. Friendship can easily become the foundation of romance. Two people talk, become comfortable, share personal thoughts, and gradually develop attraction. Before bodies meet, minds often meet. But Gemini must be careful not to confuse novelty with love. Every relationship begins with new stories and discoveries. Eventually, ordinary life enters. The other person becomes familiar. Responsibilities appear, and the initial mystery reduces. An unevolved Gemini may mistake this familiarity for boredom. Yet love cannot survive only on stimulation. It requires patience and the willingness to discover another person at deeper levels. A human being is not a short article that can be finished in 5 minutes. Every person contains hidden chapters, and those chapters open through trust and shared experience. Gemini also needs freedom within relationships, but freedom cannot become emotional avoidance. A healthy bond allows individuality together with honesty and commitment. If you need space, communicate it. If your feelings have changed, do not hide behind mixed signals. The purpose of communication is not to keep every possibility open, it is to make reality clear. Gemini can also analyze emotions rather than experience them. Intellectual understanding may explain pain, but it does not automatically heal the heart. Sometimes the native must stop explaining, sit quietly, and allow the feeling to pass through. This inner journey is beautifully revealed by Gemini's three nakshatras: Mrigashira nakshatra, Ardra nakshatra, and Punarvasu nakshatra. Mrigashira searches, Ardra nakshatra passes through the storm, Punarvasu returns to the light. Mrigashira, symbolized by the deer's head, is alert, sensitive, and curious. It wants to explore what lies beyond the familiar. This can produce travel, research, experimentation, and wide interests. But endless searching can become restlessness. The native may imagine fulfillment in the next career, in the next relationship, in the next city, or in the next opportunity. Mrigashira must learn that movement is not always progress. Curiosity becomes meaningful only when the search gains direction and eventually turns inward. Then comes Ardra, connected with Rudra and symbolized by the teardrop. Ardra nakshatra represents storms, truth, emotional intensity, and transformation. It is the moment when the seeker discovers that truth is not always comfortable. A message may alter a relationship, a fact may destroy a long held belief, an event may break an old identity. Ardra nakshatra gives penetrating intelligence and the courage to investigate what others avoid. But truth must not become cruelty. The purpose of the storm is purification. When Ardra asks what illusion is being removed, pain becomes wisdom and the teardrop becomes a sacred release. After the storm comes Punarvasu nakshatra, the return of light. Punarvasu represents renewal, restoration, and second chances. It teaches that clarity can return after confusion, that a person may lose the path and still find the way home. The evolved Punarvasu does not simply return to the past, it returns with deeper understanding. Together, these three nakshatras describe Gemini's evolution. Curiosity begins the journey, that is Mrigashira. Truth breaks illusion, that is Ardra. And wisdom restores clarity, that is Punarvasu. Gemini begins with two, the twins, the speaker and listener, the lover and beloved. Spiritually, however, the native must discover the consciousness within which these opposites arise. The mind gathers information, contacts, and experiences, but eventually it must ask, what is the essence? Information gives many answers. Wisdom reveals what truly matters. This is why silence becomes necessary for Gemini. Silence is not the absence of intelligence. It allows intelligence to settle. When the mind is constantly occupied by messages, videos, news, and opinions, intuition becomes difficult to hear. Gemini is naturally gifted in speaking. Its higher lesson is to listen to another person, to the heart, and finally to the silence within. At its highest expression, Mercury does not merely make a person clever, it makes the person useful. A Gemini native can become a bridge between knowledge and those who need it, between two people who have misunderstood each other, or between a difficult truth and the language through which it can be accepted. But a bridge must remain steady. If the mind is constantly reacting, forwarding, commenting, and arguing, communication loses its sacred purpose. The native then becomes surrounded by words but deprived of understanding. Therefore, the real discipline for Gemini is discrimination. Before speaking, ask whether the words are true, necessary, and helpful. Before repeating information, ask whether it has been verified. Before giving advice, ask whether the other person wants guidance or simply wishes to be heard. This does not weaken Gemini's spontaneity, it refines it. It gives every word direction, dignity, and purpose. And this reminds me of a beautiful and humorous story that carries a powerful message for every Gemini native. I have heard once it happened that Pandit Chaturdas was passing through a forest. He came upon a skull. Just curious as he always was, he asked the skull, "What brought you here, sir?" And he was amazed because the skull said, "Talking brought me here, sir." He couldn't believe it, but he had heard it. So he ran to the court of the king. He told there that, "I have seen a miracle. A skull, a talking skull, lying just near our village in the forest." The king also couldn't believe, but he was also curious. The whole court followed. They went into the forest. Pandit Chaturdas went near the skull and asked again the same question, "What brought you here, sir?" But the skull remained silent. He asked again and again and again, but the skull was dead silent. The king said, "I knew it before, Chaturdas, that you are a liar. But now this is too much. You have played such a joke that you will have to suffer for it." He ordered his guard to cut his head and throw the head near the skull for the ants to eat. When everybody went, the king and his court, the skull started talking again. Yes, the skull started talking again. And the skull asked, "What brought you here, sir?" Pandit Chaturdas answered, "Talking brought me here, sir." And talking has brought man here, the situation that is today. A constant chattering mind does not allow any happiness, any possibility of happiness, because only a silent mind can look within. Only a silent mind can hear the silence, the happiness that is always bubbling there. But it is so subtle that with the noise of the mind, you cannot hear it. And perhaps this is one of the most important messages for Gemini natives. Your ability to speak is a gift. Your curiosity is a gift. Your quick intelligence is a gift. Your ability to move from one subject to another and connect different ideas is also a gift. But every gift must be governed by awareness. Not every thought needs to become a sentence. Not every piece of information needs to be forwarded. Not every observation needs to be expressed. Not every argument needs your participation. And not every silence needs to be filled. Sometimes Gemini speaks because it has something valuable to communicate. But sometimes Gemini speaks simply because the mind feels uncomfortable when nothing is happening. The moment silence appears, the mind searches for a subject. It remembers an old incident. It creates an imaginary conversation. It begins analyzing somebody's behavior. It opens the phone. It checks messages. It looks for news. It moves towards another source of stimulation. But my dear Gemini natives, silence is not emptiness. Silence is where your scattered energy begins returning to you. You spend so much of your life entering the minds of other people. You listen to their opinions. You read their messages. You understand their problems. You respond to their questions. You observe their behavior. But how much time do you spend entering your own inner world? Gemini is the master of external communication. Its spiritual evolution begins with internal communication. The important question is no longer what are other people saying. The deeper question becomes what is my own consciousness trying to tell me. You may speak with hundreds of people and still remain unfamiliar with yourself. You may possess enormous information and still not know which direction your own life should take. You may understand the psychology of everybody around you and still remain unable to understand the restlessness within your own mind. That is why silence becomes essential. Speech carries you toward the world. Silence carries you toward yourself. Speech allows you to meet another person. Silence allows you to meet your own soul. The skull in the story said, "Talking brought me here, sir." But conscious silence can take you somewhere completely different. It can take you toward clarity. It can take you toward inner stability. It can take you toward awareness. And eventually, it can take you toward the divine. The highest Gemini is not the person who speaks the most. The highest Gemini is the person whose words carry meaning because they arise from inner stillness. When your mind is restless, your words also become restless. When your mind is confused, communication creates further confusion. But when the mind becomes peaceful, even a few words can transform another person. This is why the greatest speakers are not merely people who know how to speak. They also know when to pause. They know when to listen. They know when the other person needs advice. And they know when the other person simply needs compassionate presence. Mercury gives intelligence, but silence gives maturity to intelligence. Mercury gives language, but awareness gives responsibility to language. Mercury gives speed, but wisdom teaches you when to slow down. This is the true spiritual discipline of Gemini. Before speaking, pause for one moment. Ask yourself, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Will it create clarity? Or am I speaking merely because the mind wants movement? This one pause can protect relationships. It can prevent misunderstandings. It can save you from unnecessary arguments. It can protect your reputation. And most importantly, it can preserve your inner peace. Gemini is connected with multiplication. Therefore, whatever you speak has the potential to multiply. One encouraging sentence may give somebody confidence. One careless remark may create lasting pain. One truthful message may remove confusion. One rumor may damage many lives. So become conscious of what you multiply. Do not multiply fear. Do not multiply gossip. Do not multiply suspicion. Do not multiply unnecessary mental noise. Multiply knowledge. Multiply hope. Multiply intelligent humor. Multiply meaningful conversation. Multiply understanding. Multiply kindness. And multiply love. That is how Mercury becomes sacred. My dear Gemini natives, you do not have to suppress your natural expressiveness. You are not meant to become dull, serious, or withdrawn. Your liveliness is beautiful. Your humor is beautiful. Your capacity to learn and share is beautiful. But let your communication flow from a centered mind rather than from your nervous restlessness. Speak because your words carry value. Listen because another soul deserves to be understood. And remain silent when silence can reveal something that words cannot. Devote at least 10 minutes every day to complete silence. No telephone, no mobile, no television, no conversation, no reading. Simply sit quietly and observe the movement of your mind. And do not fight the thoughts. Do not follow the thoughts. Let them come and go. Gradually, the speed will reduce. And beneath that constant movement, you may discover a presence that was always there. That presence is not restlessness. It does not need entertainment. It does not require validation. It is peaceful by its very nature. And I would strongly recommend that you start chanting the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chant this beautiful Vasudeva mantra. Chant it daily 108 times the morning and evening. When the mind moves toward 10 different directions, let the mantra bring it back to one direction. When thoughts multiply, return to the mantra. When conversations disturb you, return to the mantra. When you do not know what to say, chant silently before responding. When you feel lonely, do not immediately search for another person. First, sit with the divine presence within you. Because the deepest union is not merely the union of one person with another. The deepest union is the meeting of the restless mind with the silent soul. And that is the highest meaning of Mithun. The journey begins when two people meet over a cup of coffee. But the spiritual journey becomes complete when the individual finally meets the self. The first meeting creates conversation, the final meeting creates silence. The first meeting awakens desire, the final meeting awakens consciousness. The first meeting brings you closer to another person, the final meeting brings you back home. So, my dear Gemini men and women, continue learning, continue exploring, continue communicating, continue carrying fresh ideas into the world. But do not allow the noise of the world to take you away from yourself. Let your curiosity become inquiry. Let your intelligence become wisdom. Let your attraction become conscious love. Let your communication become healing. Let your duality find an inner center. And let your words emerge from the silence of a peaceful heart. May the seeking energy of Mrigashira Nakshatra lead you toward truth. May the storms of Ardra Nakshatra cleanse your mind of everything that is false. And may the light of Punarvasu always guide you back toward hope, clarity, and renewal. May your words uplift rather than wound. May your intelligence unite rather than divide. May your relationships bring depth rather than temporary excitement. May Mercury bless you with clarity, discrimination, and meaningful expression. And whenever the mind becomes too noisy, remember the words of the skull. Talking brought me here, sir. Then smile, become quiet, close your eyes, and listen to the happiness that has always been bubbling silently within you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Remember to chant this mantra throughout your life and you will be alright. Love to all my Gemini natives. I personally love Gemini because without Gemini, even YouTube would have not been possible. Because it is through Gemini that we all connect digitally. Jai Sri Ganesha, Jai Guru.
Om गम गणपतये नमः। ओम गम गणपतये नमः। ओम गम गणपतये नमः।